Coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers report, some 49ers OTAs winners and losers. But before we take a look at who won the week and lost the week, make sure you subscribe to the channel for year-round coverage of the Niners. We have you covered with videos every single day on all of the latest news, rumors, analysis. We do live shows and watch parties. So if you're in the market for Niners content that's informative, insightful, entertaining, this is the place for you, and I hope all of you out there are getting set to have a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. Let's begin with the winners, and I want to start with Trey Lance. And let me explain why Trey Lance in OTAs this week goes down as a winner in my book. He got all of the first-team reps with the offense, and what does Trey Lance need after having had 4 starts in the NFL and 19 combined starts going all the way back to 2019 in the NFL and at North Dakota State? He desperately needs experience and reps. Don't allow it to go to Sam Darnold. See what you have in Trey Lance. That's why you moved 3 first-round picks to advance up the draft board to take him at number 3 overall. So he's able to get some of those reps to work out the kinks. And it's important especially to get it with the first team because those are the best players on the offensive roster. Lance came into OTAs with some refined mechanics as well after working with Jeff Christensen, who is Patrick Mahomes' throwing coach. When I look at some of the alterations that Lance has made to those mechanics, I think the arm motion is a little bit quicker and faster, a little bit more concise. It's less loopy on that windup. The release is a little bit more crisp as well, and the footwork and base of his lower body is a little bit improved. The one concern I still have with how Lance throws the football, if you look at an Aaron Rodgers, a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Michael Vick back in the day, quick flick of the wrist or an easy arm motion, and the ball just soars. For Lance, he has arm strength. He can throw it downfield, but it looks as though there's so much effort that goes into every throw. And then on the retraction of the follow-through, he'll throw it and then bring his arm back. So it looks a little bit tight and it doesn't look all that easy. That might just be who he is. He's had some trouble with touch on the football. Sometimes he has to throw it 100-mile-per-hour fastball, and sometimes you just have to lob it in there and layer some of those throws. We'll see if he's able to work on that. But to work on the mechanics and to get those first-team reps, that's really important for him. Will the mechanics remain the same once the real action starts, when the pads are on, when pass rushers are coming after him, and he's in live action? Or will he revert to what he knows and what his mind knows, which is some of those bad mechanics that he's been practicing for a little while? I also want to give him credit for this. It has not been an easy start for him. He's a young guy. He's only 23 years old. He was drafted when he was 21. He's barely played any football. In his rookie season, he had the fracture in his finger. He had the knee injury, and then the broken ankle in year 2. That's a lot to deal with from a psychological standpoint as a young player who, up to this point, hasn't fulfilled expectations. He admitted this week he saw a sports psychologist looking to get better mentally. He said it's the happiest he's been playing football in a little while and wants a chance to compete. So he's going to be able to get that, and it's up to him to prove that he can be the guy for San Francisco. Your level of excitement in Lance is what? Scale it for me in the comment section, 1 to 100. Next OTA winner. Drake Jackson is an OTA winner from this past week. Big year coming up for the second-year defensive end. The 49ers lost Charles Omenihu in free agency, as well as Samson Ebukam. They did sign Clelin Ferrell, but they're a little bit light as far as depth goes at defensive end. And for the 49ers defense to be successful this year, Drake Jackson needs to step up and have a big year as a former second-round pick. Nick Bosa had 18.5 sacks last year. That's why he won Defensive Player of the Year. The last 4 games of the season, regular season combined with the playoffs, he had 1 sack. He wore down because he didn't get a lot of help with sack production along that defensive line. And you lost some with Omenihu and Ebukam departing. And that's why Drake Jackson is stepping into some big shoes here for this 49ers defense for him in year 2. Kyle Shanahan said that Jackson wore down physically last year. He wasn't used to the NFL game and acclimated with the physicality of it as well as the longer season, and that's why he was a healthy scratch multiple times last year, including a couple games at the end of the season. He needed to bulk up and get acclimated with the NFL game from a physical standpoint, and he's done that this offseason. Came to OTAs weighing 265 pounds. That's up 13 pounds from where he was at his playing weight of 252 pounds. Ideally, with that comes a little bit more strength and a little bit more stamina. He had 3 sacks in his first 6 games last year as a rookie. Then he ran into a stamina wall. But because he came in to camp, bulked up, Drake Jackson, an OTA winner. Also, an OTA winner is another second-year player from that 2022 draft class. That's Spencer Burford. He started 16 games for the Niners last year at right guard. I thought he had a solid rookie year. If you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, they're pretty ugly, in the 50s and 60s. League average is 70. He got pushed around a little bit, especially at the end of the year against the Seahawks in the playoffs, Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. That whole offensive front for San Francisco really did get physically dominated. Spencer Burford was a little bit slight. He's added to his frame. He, too, came into OTAs bulked up a little bit, and there's a good competition, a stealth competition for that right guard position. It's going to be between him, Nick Sakel, John Feliciano, big year coming up for Burford, and it starts with him being a little bit stronger. This one might come as a surprise to some people, but Christian McCaffrey is an OTAs winner. Why is that? The 2-time All-Pro did not need to be at voluntary practices this week. He was, and not only was he there partaking, he was going hard. And what that does, as a guy who's accomplished a lot in this league, who was terrific last year, one of the best all-around offensive playmakers in the sport, that sets an example for the rest of his teammates. When fringe roster guys, mediocre players, even star players see that Christian McCaffrey, this deep into his NFL career, with everything that he's accomplished, is going hard trying to perfect his craft, you know what message that sends to everybody else? Shit, man, I got to up my game to a certain degree as well. Leaders and star players set the cultural tone for your organization. And these types of things matter when a star player is going hard in May, because that does have a trickle-down effect to other players on the rest of the roster. To a couple of young players here, Darrell Luter Jr. We've continued to talk about him a lot here on this show, and I really liked the selection when the Niners took him in the 5th round at the end of April. I think he's pushing for serious time in year 1, and by the end of the year, he could emerge as the Niners' 3rd best corner or 2nd best corner. He has a pro-ready body and pro-ready skills. And I said this in a similar way that I said about Samuel Womack last year. If you looked at the numbers from Womack and you looked at the numbers from Darrell Luter Jr., Luter Jr. went to South Alabama. Womack went to Toledo. Not football powerhouses by any means. At the cornerback position, maybe more so than a lot of other positions on the field, you have to have good instincts. You have to have awareness. You have to have good ball skills. You have to be able to make plays on the football. Body adjustments, all of that. Luter has it. Womack has it. And I think the Niners saw that on tape because they just have a knack for making plays on the football. And sometimes if you lack speed, you make up for it with just being an instinctual player. And why I say this about both, if you look at their pass breakup numbers at Toledo for Womack and at South Alabama for Luter, they were really, really good. And they can turn to address the football instead of running into these wide receivers. What happens then? A flag gets thrown. So I think Luter has a pro-ready body and pro-ready skills. He could push for some playing time this year. And then a couple more rookies. Braden Willis, the late-round pick out of Oklahoma at tight end, he led college football last year in yards picked up after contact for tight ends, among all tight ends in the NFL draft class. And then Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell might be a little bit slight. He might not be the fastest guy in the world. You know what he's really good at, though? Catching the football consistently and bringing the football down with some of these contested catches. And that also translates to the NFL level. You might not be the fastest guy. You might not be the biggest guy. Can you catch a 50-50 ball? Can you fight through some contact with the DB and make a play downfield? And if not, can you draw a flag? Can you be a heady player? That's what Ronnie Bell is. And I think Ronnie Bell is kind of molding and has the potential to mold into the next Jauan Jennings. The last 2 years, Jauan Jennings has been so good on some of the money downs, as I like to call them. 3rd down, 4th down. He always seems to be the security blanket for whoever's playing quarterback. You need to move the chains on 3rd down. Where's Jauan Jennings? He always finds that soft spot in the defense, whether they're playing man or zone, and has a knack for making big plays as well. And he's going to get paid most likely after this year by another team. And as a former 7th-round pick, he deserves a nice little payday. Hasn't made a ton of money from NFL standards so far in his career. Ronnie Bell's going to step into that slot spot, in my opinion. He's going to make the 53-man roster this year. I'm not sure how much he plays. Year 2, though, if he bulks up a little bit, look for him to step into that Jauan Jennings role. 49ers OTA losers, a few here. And don't get too sensitive about it. It's extremely early. Players can reverse this curse. Jalen Moore. There is an open competition for right tackle on this football team between Colton McKivitz, Matthew Pryor, maybe Alfredo Gutierrez. It looks as though Nick Sakel is going to play interior offensive line. And Jalen Moore, who's gotten snaps at the tackle spots, is now the 3rd-string offensive tackle. He is in danger of not making this roster. Deebo Samuel wasn't at OTAs. Last year, he signed that massive contract after demanding a trade. He was injured all last year, out of shape, after he got the bag. That is not a good look. If I'm Deebo Samuel, I want to make a positive impression on my teammates. Brandon Ayuk was there. Deebo Samuel was not. I understand it's voluntary. But if I work at a company and I know that a lot of my other coworkers are practicing for something or they're working towards something, and I'm not there as one of the leaders of the company like I am at Chat Sports, I would feel a little bit weird not being there. I would feel like I'm missing out, not adding to the championship culture which the Niners are trying to build. Same could be said for Javon Hargrave. He was their big ticket free agency signing and splash this last offseason. I'm trying to make a good first impression on my teammates. Now, a guy like Trent Williams doesn't necessarily have to be there. This is a guy who's older. He's accomplished. Might be the best left tackle of all time. He flirted with retirement briefly after the season. He doesn't really need these OTAs. For Hargrave and Deebo, though, I'm trying to be there because I'm trying to be there with my teammates, right? Hargrave, you signed a 4-year, $84 million deal. Why can't he show up? I would want to show up. And then lastly, Quantrez Knight, the cornerback, cast on his hand, not able to practice. He is battling for a roster spot. And anytime you're battling for a roster spot and you can't practice as a fringe roster player, a little bit of a concern as far as your prospects of making that football team. So there you go. 49ers OTAs winners and losers. The Niners still have a couple of OTA sessions left, so we might do another one of these, and then, of course, training camp going to be here before we know it. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great Memorial Day. Thank you to all of our troops, current, future, and past, and we'll catch you next time here on the show.